Hello, Nicholas. Can you hear me?
Yes, Johnny.
Okay.
You're muted now. So maybe I think we should get started. We have a slight glitch in the system for the connection, but I think as soon as people can get logged in, we can follow up with the remarks of the different participants today. So I just want to check from the government of Ethiopia, David Shimelis, if you could unmute, please.
Yes. Hi, Nicholas. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So let's get started. As I was telling you, we will hear today findings and recommendations about the Ethiopia MAPS assessment. This assessment was led by the World Bank, and it provides a very deep understanding of the public procurement system of Ethiopia and several subnational governments, regional governments in the country. Please submit your questions via Zoom chat or on social media using the hashtag #MapsEthiopia. This webinar is being recorded and we will post it afterwards on our website. So as for opening remarks, we would like to hear first the Director in the Ministry of Finance, Mr. David Shimelis. The floor is yours, please. Mr. Shimelis.
Thank you, Nicholas. Dear honorable guests, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I extend my warmest greetings and to welcome you all to this MAPS Ethiopia Assessment Launch webinar, which is an important milestone for fostering the development and implementation of procurement reforms of the country. As you all know, the government of Ethiopia has conducted a lot of successful reforms on procurement during the last reform periods, but there are also areas which needs wide range of reforms in the coming reform periods. In doing so, government of Ethiopia is developing and started implementation of 10 years perspective plan, which is a roadmap for prosperity in the coming reform periods. So in order to attain the development goals, which are planned as a country, one of the basic systems should be in place is to have a sound public finance management system. As part of the public finance management system, professional development of procurement contributed a lot in enhancing the quality of managing public resources, in assuring value for money and accountability. These days, due to dynamism of global economy, the management of public resources is becoming complex. But the procurement profession is also enhanced time to time in a consistent manner in order to boost the professional advancement in the country, as well as in the industry. This is mainly assisted by the commitment and effort of procurement professionals, as well as government in a meaningful way. Accordingly, one of the key initiatives this webinar will be expected to discuss is on how to use the results of this MAPS assessment in order to enhance procurement profession and work together to form synergy in the industry for better Ethiopia. This has an implication to have a strong governance structure for transparency and accountability of the country. On the other hand, the assessment also onboard different best practice of the profession and aligning with the global procurement standards as strategy. In its quest to reform the public finance management, the government of Ethiopia, in a collaboration with professionals of the industry, will work together to build the best PFM system of the country, as well as continent as a whole. We believe also this MAPS assessment will be contributing a valuable input for our future reforms of the sector. Finally, I would like to thank all the teams participated on this assessment and producing this excellent performance, and also the organizers of this webinar, both from the government and other stakeholder side. With this short remark, I will declare the webinar is officially opened, and I wish you a productive deliberation, and thank you. Over.
Thank you, Mr. Shimeles. We also had opening remark from Elma Sariso. We have who's accredited procurement practice manager for East and Southern Africa region at the World Bank. Unfortunately, we are having a connection issue with our Zoom. So I would maybe propose that we move forward and have and speak about the findings, and maybe once we can reconnect Elma's, we hear her views about this assessment. So moving over, we would like first to hear about findings and recommendations of this assessment. For this, I would like to invite the team that participated in this assessment. I see that Demelash, we are also experiencing a connection issue with him, but Anjania, I don't know if you could maybe jump in and present some of these findings for this first part about the team and what you saw when assessing Ethiopia and the regions. Over to you.
Hello, can you hear us, Nicholas?
Tell that she's not able to connect.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nicholas. This is Damalash.
Oh, good.
I think Elmas do have, some connection problem. She might try, to connect later and, give us.
Blocked. Account is blocked.
Her account is blocked. I don't know, if there is somebody, who can assist her in this connection. It would be great.
Good. We will look into that. But please, if you can go ahead and present the findings, and in the meantime, we will try to aid her with the connection.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, dear participants. This is Damalash Damashe, Senior Procurement Specialist in the World Bank. I'll be representing the main findings and recommendations of the MAPS assessment, the Ethiopian Core MAPS assessment, on behalf of the team. I hope Ella Seminiska has also joined. Ella was the TTL, the task team leader for this assessment. I hope she has also joined this webinar. If so, she will also provide us more clarification whenever required on the details. Next slide, please. Yeah, the Ethiopia MAPS, it was initiated in July 2019. We had a launch workshop in September 2019, and in June 2020, the report was prepared and it was cleared by the bank internal management. In September 2021, we received, MAPS seal of approval. The Ethiopian MAPS report was the first MAPS report to get certification from the MAPS Secretariat globally. And in November 2022, MAPS report was published through the MAPS website. Next slide, please. Yeah, to give you some background on the assessment, there are things which have been positively influencing, the assessment. Some of them are like, there was a full and continuous collaboration between the assessment team, the World Bank, and the government of Ethiopia. Government of Ethiopia has been proactively supporting the assessment. I would like to recognize, the support from David, Atul Dab, and others as well. It has been very encouraging and very supportive support we have got from the government of Ethiopia. And we had also, a wide participation during consultative workshop from different stakeholders, particularly from the private sector and development partners. That was also influenced, the assessment positively. In terms of, during the assessment time, Ethiopia was hit by two shocks. One is COVID-19. The other one was, desert locust. This has also gave us an opportunity, to really to look into the system, how much the system responds to such emergency procurement needs. We have also assessed, we have gone beyond the module and to check, how much the system responds to such emergencies. Next slide, please. Yeah, we had some challenges. One of the challenge was, as usual, data accessibility, inadequacy of procurement documents, filing system has been a challenge. As I said, COVID-19 and the restrictions, particularly in the last phase of data collection, we were forced, to resort to virtual data collection. We are not able to physically visit procuring entities and collect the data. That has put a bit of challenge, in the process. That challenge has been should be noted. In terms of scope, Ethiopia is a federal state. The assessment covered the federal government and 3 subnational states and 1 city administration. All of these do have their own constitution. They have their own proclamations. From procurement perspective, they have procurement laws, directives. They have procurement arrangements, regulatory frameworks. These are like independent systems, and we're forced, to check, each of these systems against the indicators. In terms of volume, it was like, conducting, 5 maps at the same time. But on top of the volume of work, there are peculiar features of this decentralized government systems, and capturing those peculiar features in the standard maps reporting template has been also a challenge. Next slide, please. Yeah, some things to keep in mind. One is, as I said, this covered, the federal and 4 subnational states. And in terms of report, we have 1 main report which covers, all the areas that we covered, federal and subnational states. But for each of these for the federal and for each of the subnational states, we prepared a matrix. We have 1 matrix for each of them, and totally we have 5 matrices in the report and 1 main report. The findings and recommendations reflect, the status, at the end of the assessment period. That is June 2020. There are a lot of progresses which has happened, afterwards. That's not reflected, and we'll hear more from other presentation, including the follow-up works which have been carried out after the MAPS assessment. Next slide, please. Yeah, in terms of assessment, we covered, all the pillars, pillar 1, pillar 2, pillar 3, and pillar 4, all the indicators, the sub-indicators, and the criteria. Next slide, please. Yeah, in terms of findings and recommendations, I'll be focusing only on the main findings and recommendations. Otherwise, the report is, as I said, it's a very big document, a very big assessment, and it's not something that we can really discuss and cover it within 1 hour of webinar. But we'll be focusing only on the main ones. In terms of strengths, under pillar 1, there is a basic legal structure established at federal and regional level. The proclamations, they do have, their own proclamations, as I said, federal and subnational states, and the proclamations ensures basic procurement principles of transparency, fairness, accountability, value for money, and the like. There are regulatory frameworks established at federal and regional levels, at subnational levels, and including, complaint handling system. Standard bidding documents were issued and were in use also. Specialized PPP law was issued at federal level. and that was also observed as one strength. In terms of gaps, we observed that there was some non-alignment, inconsistency among procurement documents and with other documents. Some of the provisions are not consistent that you find in different documents. There is lack of transparency and accessibility. Rules of participation are not complete. In some cases they miss some things. They are also inconsistent, among different documents. There is no policy on sustainable procurement beyond the rules of promoting, micro and small enterprise, through preferential treatment. Right to challenge is restricted. In some cases, there are procurement decisions that cannot be contestable. There are complaint handling system. In some cases, are not independent, and in some cases, they lack capacity. PPL, this is the procurement laws lack clarity, particularly with regard to establishing and maintaining, developing, EGP system. PPP, it's recognized that at federal level, there is a law, but at subnational level, PP is not recognized. We don't have any documents supporting PPP implementation at subnational level. Pool procurement system at Woreda level is not regulated. Woreda level is the lower government structure. It's below the subnational states. And here, at Woreda level, the procurement was structured, centralized in the finance office. The finance office consolidate all requirements of the other offices and procure centrally. But this is not properly legislated. The practice is there, but it's not properly legislated in the procurement documents, particularly in the primary documents. In terms of recommendations, ensuring, enhancing clarity and certainty of the legal document in terms of alignment, in terms of scope and definition of public bodies, in terms of applicability of the law and international agreement has been recommended. In terms of transparency, expanding the provisions to cover a more transparent system has been, and public access of information has been recommended. In terms of sustainability, we didn't find any provisions, any documents regarding sustainable procurement, except, as I said, supporting, micro and small enterprises from that angle, developing policy and including, sustainable provisions in the procurement document has been recommended. Eligibility, qualification, and evaluation, particularly clarity, was requested, under for SOS participation as a bidder, as also service providers. Additional provisions, to exclude, of exclusions due to criminal offenses, pulling of periods, for civil servants, policy related to micro and small enterprises, removing discriminatory qualification requirements. These were recommended under this team. In terms of complaints, enhancing the structure and capacity of the complaint handling board, avoiding, exclusions and avoiding, conflict of interest has also been recommended. In terms of contract management, particularly, the team recommended for government, to consider arbitration in settlement of contract disputes. EGP, including, some certain provisions in the procurement law and procurement directives, to embrace EGP establishment and implementation. From the pool manual side, including, necessary provisions in the regional PPL has been recommended. Next slide, please. Remaining. Institutional framework and management capacity, the strengths in terms of there is a strong budget allocation, administration and reporting system. There was project review arrangement, particularly, during the assessment period. There was a draft proclamation prepared by the National Planning Commission. This proclamation currently adopted, and this proclamation give government, opportunity to engage more during project preparation, during feasibility studies, during design reviews. It gives them more opportunity to engage at a higher level during project preparation, so that downstream implementation challenges could be minimized. Dedicated regulatory agencies exist, at federal and municipal level. Particularly, there are centralized procurement system at federal and regional system, regional level. Particularly with regard to establishing framework agreements, there is a separate agency which is responsible for establishing framework agreements for common user items. Procuring entities and procurement decision-making structures are clearly defined. There is also a procurement training certification program which has been started. Procurement plans, in terms of weakness, procurement plans are not used to facilitate budget preparation. There is lack of adequate capacity and independence of the regulatory functions. Publication of information is not supported by IT. EGP not established, during the time of assessment. EGP was only under pilot testing, but there is some progress since then. Inadequate use of procurement data. Professional training has not implemented all the activities in the roadmap. There is a roadmap prepared, but all the activities are not implemented. In terms of recommendations, improving functionality of PPS website, establishing website for subnational states, and also establishing a common platform for procurement information, for availability of procurement information has been recommended, which can be used by federal and all the subnational states. Linking budget process with procurement planning and ensuring timely release of budget has also been recommended. Improving the capacity of PPA and regional regulatory institutions with regard to structures and staffing, and addressing also some perceived conflict of interest has been recommended. Consider establishing, regulatories, particularly, some of the big regions, Oromia and Addis Ababa City Administration, they don't have a separate, dedicated procurement regulatory agency. That is recommended. Enhancing professionalization training has also been recommended with some specific areas of intervention. Next slide, please. Procurement operation and market practice. This one is also, in addition to the qualitative assessment, it was also supported by quantitative assessment. We were able to collect procurement information from more than 500 contracts from federal and regional level, and particularly, the recommendations under this pillar has been supported by quantitative assessment as well. In terms of strengths, we observe that there is good inspection and quality control practice, particularly for big projects, complex contracts. There is a good inspection and quality control system. There is a regular dialogue with the private sector, particularly at federal and region, subnational level. The market in some sectors is competitive, particularly in the construction sector. We have seen that there are a number of contractors and consultants under different grades that are willing and interested, to submit bids, whenever there are opportunities. Transparency at world level is better, in fact, better than even subnational level and federal level, because of there is a program, financial transparency and accountability program, which gives opportunity for citizens to engage with local authorities during budget preparation and implementation. That has gave opportunity for more transparent system at local level. In terms of gaps, there are incomplete and inaccessible procurement document. Market research doesn't inform procurement decisions and approach. In most cases, procurement approaches are decided based on threshold, not by market realities. Standard bidding documents are outdated. It's like more than 10 years, since the standard bidding documents were issued. They are also not proportional to some sectors. And subnational states, they are not using standard bidding documents, particularly for goods and non-consultancy services, except for works procurement. Procurement methods and thresholds are not sector specific. There is a one-size-fits-all approach. Quality of procurement documents needs improvement. There are inadequate qualification criteria, value for money criteria, whole life costing criteria are not used. There are the evaluation reports are not quality. In terms of, there are systemic constraints to participation in bidding and contracting, particularly this is related with shortage of foreign currency. For those contracts that require importing goods and services from abroad, potential bidders are not interested to participate in those bids because there is a long queue, to access foreign currency, and there are a challenge to successfully deliver contract responsibilities. There is long time to procure, delay in payment. Contract time overruns has also been observed, and this was evidenced through hard data. Absence of procurement procedures to respond to emergency situations has also been identified. In terms of recommendations, improving procurement record management, carrying out need analysis and market research, improving timeliness of payment, and also streamlining the payment procedures, issuing, updating standard bidding documents and ensuring proportionality and accessibility of the standard bidding documents, and also considering, sustainable procurement in its comprehensive manner has also been proposed. Improving efficiency of the procurement and contract process through continuous procurement performance reviews and updating the systems, and developing, a generic emergency preparedness plan has also been proposed. Next slide, please. In terms of accountability, integrity, and transparency, we have seen that, there is a transparent and consultative process during change in the system. Particularly at federal level, lots of consultation is happening when draft proclamation was prepared, at federal level. That was also observed as strengths. Internal and external control system is good, particularly, the external auditor at federal and regional level, they report to the parliament. At subnational level, they report to the council, to the regional councils, and they are independent of the executive. Financial transparency and accountability also help us to involve community at local level. Better appeal system is observed at federal and SNPR level. A strong anti-corruption framework, the anti-corruption framework to have, two wings, one wing for corruption prevention. There is an agency at federal and subnational level which works on preventing corruption. There is, the Attorney General, both at federal and subnational level, carries out, investigation and prosecution work. Limited access to procurement information in terms of weaknesses. There is no participation of, literally, there is no participation of civil society organizations in procurement and contract monitoring. Procurement audit recommendations are not enforceable. Auditors lack procurement knowledge, or they are not supported by procurement experts in a way they do procurement audit. Appeal decisions are not enforceable, not given within the time frame. Appeal in some regions is not independent and not accessible for bidders, particularly at Warada level. Lack of awareness on the need to report bidders' misconduct, fraud to law enforcement authority is also a gap. In terms of recommendation, enhancing participation of citizen engagement, citizens in procurement and contract monitoring, through specific provisions and actions has also been recommended. Strengthening internal audit to adequately cover procurement performance, particularly the internal audit. They focus more on the financial audit, and covering procurement audit is also recommended. Decision of the appeal body, in terms of timeliness, enforceability should also be enhanced. Fraud and corruption, particularly introducing fraud and corruption definitions are not even included in the procurement law. Introducing those provisions, establishing mechanism for sharing information among regulatory agencies and law enforcement agencies has been recommended. In terms of debarment, currently, the agency, the right of referral to the agency is limited only to procuring entities. We recommend to expand that to include auditors, regulatory authorities, private sector, and civil society. In terms of offense and punishment, distinguishing between administrative and criminal wrongdoings has to be established, and also ensuring consistency of penalties provided for some offenses in all relevant legislation is recommended. Last slide, please. Yeah, this one is, it's out of the pillars because of the unique nature of the procurement system in Ethiopia, because of the federal structure, because of having, these parallel systems running in the country. We proposed, some recommendations to ensure that, there is an integrated procurement system, harmonized integrated procurement system in the country. From that angle, we proposed, there should be a coordination between the federal and regional public procurement systems. I know that something is happening, but still a lot has to be done in terms of coordination. Use of harmonized standard bidding documents. The standard bidding documents has to be harmonized and has to be has to cover all agencies. Particularly, for procurement through national competitive bidding and international competitive bidding, harmonized standard bidding documents, it helps a lot in terms of providing efficient procurement system. Common procurement information platform for federal and subnational states, common EGP system, and use of complaint review board, particularly where applicable. If you take the federal government, Addis Ababa City Administration and Oromia, from their locations, they can use one common complaint handling body, rather than having a separate complaint review body for each of these structures. Harmonized professional standards, job grading and competency requirements, coordination of capacity building and training, and continuing the biannual forum. They do have currently a biannual forum between federal and subnational states, but this is not regularized. It has to be regularized, and also it has to be supported with action plans and follow-ups. These are some of the recommendations to ensure that the public procurement system runs as one integrated system in the country. I think I'm done with my slides. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry for rushing.
No, thank you, and thanks for this. Of course, it's very difficult, as you say, to condense such an in-depth report as this one, which arguably, when even among the MAPS assessments using the revised methodology, this is one of the most extensive and in-depth reports. So thanks for trying to condense this information in such a short time. And I think it's of course the persons who are connecting to this webinar may find it relevant to go and read actually what's there in the report. So I see that we have Elmas here. So Elmas, if you could now go ahead and provide your view as a procurement manager for Eastern and Southern Africa region. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. I think, first of all, I'm sorry, I had some glitches and I'm late for the connection. I guess my colleagues, my team already gave some opening remarks. I just like to congratulate Ethiopia team for coming to this stage. I know it requires a lot of efforts, and it was a good collaboration between the World Bank and the government counterparts and all other relevant stakeholders. So I'd like to congratulate entire team. And I'm very happy to learn that many of these recommendations are already being implemented through a bank finance project. So I'd like to again I'm wishing success to implementation of those recommendations. As you know, this methodology for assessing procurement systems is a universal tool, and it has been used in many countries, several in Africa region. Before joining Africa region, I was working in South Asia region, and we have done similar assessments in Bangladesh and India. And many of those recommendations are also being implemented. In this region, in addition to Ethiopia, we have in Rwanda, Malawi, Zambia, Mozambique, DRC. So many countries are benefiting from this tool and assessing their systems to understand where they are and how they can make the public procurement system even more stronger. So I don't want to take too much of your time. I see that my team is already going into details about the findings and also recommendations of this assessment. It's a huge effort. It takes several months to come to this stage. I know we have been working with the local and international consultants who have been experts in this area. And also as a follow-up, we are working on a little bit more deep dive on road and water sectors to understand sector-specific issues and to identify sector-specific recommendations to even make the public procurement system in these sectors even more stronger. So I'm very encouraged to see that that's also progressing very well, and we hope to have the findings in the next few months. Looking forward to hearing more from our government counterparts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elmas. It's good to have you here with us today. And actually, as you were mentioning, it's very rewarding to see the efforts to see the fruits of that effort in this report, and even more so in recommendations that are being implemented. And for this, we would want to hear both from the Deputy Director General in the Public Procurement and Property Authority in the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, as well as from the World Bank, and Yanni Kumar, Senior Procurement Specialist and Procurement Hub Coordinator for Ethiopia, Sudan, South Sudan, and Eritrea, to tell us a bit more about this project and how MAP's recommendations are being implemented now, and what's the future for reform in Ethiopia. So the floor is yours, please.
So Nicholas, you can put the slide, one pager slide. No, the other one. The other slide. I mean, other PPT.
The last name.
So that's yours coming here.
Yes. So thank you, Nicholas and colleagues. I will very briefly. So our government counterpart will basically tell us after the maps what they are doing. I will just briefly touch upon the areas where the World Bank is providing support after following maps. So just after as soon as maps was completed, just next financial year, the World Bank supported the government in developing a procurement strategy and action plan for the federal. For the federal, it was a complete action plan, and for the region, it was a model strategy and model action plan was prepared, which was to be further calibrated as per the requirement by individual region. Then next year, the bank, again with the help of GPP funding, is supporting the government with one project which the government is implementing, that is of $575,000. And there are 4 or 5 activities there which is being undertaken. The details of those activities will be elaborated by our colleague from this thing, so I'm not covering here. So that is another support. Then the bank, with the help of GPP funding, again supporting for which Elmas also mentioned, sector level assessment in the water and the road sector. So that is another thing the bank is supporting. The bank is also supporting, EGP was implemented with the support of the bank, and now based on the recommendation of the maps, the EGP rollout also is being supported with another project. The EGP was through a PFM project. Now EGP rollout through another project, this is being supported. through PFM project, the strategy roadmap was prepared for both the federal as well as national, subnational entities. And now that is being supported by the World Bank project, the rollout. Our colleague from the government will elaborate. There was a recommendation regarding professionalization training. So through the PFM project itself, the roadmap of professionalization training was reviewed, and that is now being implemented. One more touching upon slightly on the MAPS recommendation, there is a global study being done regarding SOEs as a supplier, how that is affecting or not affecting various countries, whether there is a distortion in the supplier market because of the presence or the absence of the procurement. So Ethiopia is one of the sample country among 6-7 other countries. So that also the World Bank is working on. So I stop here, and now I request our government counterpart, Waldea, Mr. Waldea. He will now, Mr. Waldea, please.
Morning and good afternoon, Nicholas and other dear colleagues. Yeah, I can see also. I thank you very much for having me to explain, what we are doing since MAPS. So I go briefly on the activities which have been conducted since MAPS assessment. There are a lot of recommendations, but I only focus on the activities which have been conducted, after the MAPS assessment. So with the support of the World Bank, as Anjani said, that there is a procurement reform strategy which have been used for the next issues like the federal government and the regional government or regional state. Those action plans has been prepared, and we are, using that action plans. The regions and the federal governments are working on that aspect. Next slide. So the other activities, as Damallash presented briefly, there is an issue with the regulatory body capacities and regions. So we did that, the organizational structures and their performance has been, especially the PPA is studied with the institutions, Addis Ababa University, how the government is implemented his oversight activities and other activities. So that recommendation has been taken to the new structures, and the government also have initiated with the new structures to capacitate the FPA. So we are trying to staff, that structures. So with this, at the federal level, we are restructuring ourselves and putting, staffs with those new structures. Parallelly, the regions also having, such prototype regional structures. They are using their structures accordingly, and some of them have established the regions as agency, regional level as agency. Some of them, these regulatory bodies under Ministry of Bureau of Finance. So we are providing them to guidance and assistance to have a proper structure. Next slide. The other activities is that we need to revise the procurement law based on the having the input of the MAPS. So we try to ensure the consistency and alignment issues which is raised with the legal documents. This alignment cannot be only done with proclamation. It can be done also with secondary legislative like directives and SCBD. When the procurement law is enacted, then we go to accordingly. But for the time being, for those who have high potentials, we try to include in the proclamations. And the establishment of maintenance of the EGP as a recommendation. There is no a detailed article with the new proclamation. We try to include the detailed articles with the new draft proclamation. And we also improve the structures with the complaint handling board. Even the membership, we try to include mandatory the civil society as a member to the board, and some additional also elements there. And we try to improve the transparency and public access procurement information, also how to be transmitted to the public, and likewise, and also to govern the involvement of SOE in public procurement as whistleblowers and as a regulatory, and as also a member of the complaint handling board, and also try to include with this new draft proclamation, especially with the abnormally low bids issues. We don't have such critical articles, but now we try to include, and the life cycle costs also, and others, which is we consider that this comment should be included in the proclamation. Some others also we go to with directive and secondary legislative. Next slide. Yeah, the other activity what we did that in collaboration with the World Bank, we prepared the system strengthening project based on the strategy document and the action plan what we said before. These are specifically the help of the World Bank with around 575,000 US dollar. With this amount, we try to have such capacity issues like capacity enhancement support to the procurement of regulatory bodies at federal and regional level, including establishing training programs. We hired the Crown agent to have the training materials and the documents, and even giving the TOT for the federal and the regions. So after that, for the next 3 to 5 years, we can use this document and capacitate ourselves at regional and federal levels. So we are in the process of having this document. The other issue is, as you may say from the recommendation, the issue of sustainable procurement issue. So to have the sustainable procurement issues at local and international levels, we have a local and international consultant to have the document how this sustainable procurement can go further and include at the policy level and the document and the SCBD. So we are also in the process of having the consultant local and international to get the document and the study result. We are also recommendation as a record management. We're also working on that to get a study result to improve record management. Since the rollout of the EGP is taking time, but when the EGP rollout is completed, there is no problem at the record management. But at that point of time, we need to have an improved record management. So we have a consultant to have that document. Also, there is also still relying in the process of placing a procurement notice. The maps also identified that there is a miss using the placing of the procurement notice. So we try to also address that one. The other one is the critical one is the emergency procurement procedure. We know that Ethiopia has different scenarios to have to use the emergency issues. So we don't have standalone and a policy. So we also have a consultant to have the policy matters with emergency issues. So for all these activities, the bank is financed, and not only financially, technically, they are supporting us. We are working on collaborative matters. So after having this policy document, so we can include with the second legislative and the SCBD document, and to have a better working rules and documents. Next slide. The other activity is rollout, the continuation of rollout. EGP is now currently is rollout with 74 ministries and agencies. Among 74, 69 agencies and ministries are fully working on the new EGP, electronics government procurement. So we are in a good situation. This also, as Anjani said, that the staffs and other development is supporting through the World Bank. The other is procurement professionalization. Actually, we get the study. We identified the gap since starting this professionalization, we have been conducting around 1,176 staffs, but we are not, having identified the gaps and the impact. So we try to hire a consultant and get the gaps and the recommendations. So we are in the process of, restructuring and having the professionalization activities based on the studies and the roadmap. The other one is to improve the employment of CSOs. Currently, we have a MOA signed with Transparency Ethiopia, as we said, to have a collaborative activities. We are also working with Coast Ethiopia. We are a member of the Coast Ethiopia, and we also have, to use with others, to use them as a whistleblower and to use them as part of the government to protect, especially to combat corruptions and improve transparency activities. On the other activities, to improve quality of audit and performance of the audit recommendation. As you know, there is a general auditors, and we as a FPA is also conducted an auditing. Actually, this auditing should be collaborative and it should be focused to the same objective. So we had a discussion with the auditor generals, and we had agreed to have, common understanding. And the auditor general's staff also have some problems with procurement legislative. We try to give them the training to the auditor general staff. What is the procurement intent and the intent of the legislation and the practice. So we are in a good collaborative manner with the auditor general. So we believe that next season we have a good auditing results. Next slide. Actually, some of the activities are the one which I discussed. The challenge that we have is that even if the draft has been submitted to the Council of Ministers, there is a delay because of other reasons. So this is a serious challenge, but we hope that it will be solved soon. The staff capacity and turnover, as you know, the government the structure is very low in terms of benefits and other package. So there is a serious turnover. Because of that, there is a staff capacity problem also there. And the financial resource, we have different reforms, so we need financial resource, especially with the next seasons. With the solutions, actually, we try to ensure enactment of the proclamation. We believe that. And we try to capacitate ourselves with the new structures and having, some peoples. And we also get some special permissions with the World Bank finances. We have some contract staffs to have to capacitate ourselves. The other one is to enhance engagement with the World Bank and other development, especially for the future to better roll out the EGP even to the regions and subnational states. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for presenting both from the World Bank and the government how you are already using maps and what you want to promote afterwards. So I think we have a couple of minutes to ask some questions. So some of them have already been answered by my colleague Yepe here. And I would maybe first want to ask about the private sector participation. So just briefly, what was the main finding regarding private sector participation in Ethiopia? So over to Anjani and the people in Ethiopia. And in the meantime, maybe also regarding, there's a more general question about data, and I think this ties well also with understanding how the EGP is being rolled out. So maybe elaborating on the EGP and what relates to collecting good quality data for to make informed decision making. Over to Demiraj team.
Hello? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I will reflect on the private sector participation during the assessment, and I will hand over to Atolda on the AGP rollout. Regarding private sector participation, as I said, there was a very good participation from the private sector. We had initially, a consultative workshop with the private sector. The turnout was good. They were very much engaged, in providing feedback, even in that workshop. And also, in the same workshop, we circulated, some questionnaires, and we collected more data. We had a one-to-one discussion with the association leadership. There are different associations representing private sector, and we had a one-to-one discussion with the private sector as well. And also the survey, finally we circulated survey, the turnout was good. I don't remember the exact number, but it was more, we received more than responses from more than 200 participants and respondents, and we had a very good interaction, because of that, even when we had this consultative workshop for sector level assessment, after the main maps, the turnout was still, in fact, increasing. It was very good. The private sector, what I understand is, they believe that, this kind of assessment, it helps us, to improve the procurement system. Mostly they rely on public procurement market, and they want, they are very much eager, to see this procurement market and the procedures are improved. From transparency point of view, from the system point of view, and whenever they are called, for this kind of discussions, the turnout is good, and the participation is very encouraging, and that's what we have seen. And they also follow up. They provide you feedback, and later, after even the report was issued, they follow up, on the implementation. Sometimes, they call even individually to ask, the progress, in terms of implementing the recommendations. And what I see is, the turnout, the participation from the private sector is very much encouraging whenever there is this kind of studies. Thank you.
AGP.
May I come in on the private sector?
Yes.
Sure.
So Damelesh explained very well how private sector has contributed to the assessment, but I think what is more important is their participation to actual procurement. And when we have a stronger public procurement system, the transparent system where it will address their concerns, complaints. So I think the participation of private sector to the public procurement will increase, and more competition will bring better quality, better prices. So I'm very encouraged that all these efforts to make the system much more stronger, much more transparent, will help in the long term, in the medium and long term, to have much higher private sector participation. So yes, their participation to the assessment is very important, but that's not the main objective. I think our main objective to have much higher private sector participation in the actual procurement process. And I'm very optimistic that this will significantly increase with the implementation of all these efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Elmas. Indeed, I agree with your intervention. And maybe just to finalize, as I see that we've reached the hour, just very briefly in 1 or 2 minutes, if you could let us know the plans for the EGP rollout, and with that we would be concluding this webinar. So over to you.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the EGP rollout, we have a strategy with pillars and strategic objectives. So not only this rollout cannot be only at the federal level, it is also for the regional, subnational and regional level. So as I said before, we are implementing in 69 public bodies. We have around 169 public bodies in total. So the remaining will be completed in June, maybe 2014. This is at federal level. So at the regional levels, we have also a plan to complete on next June 2028, because as you know, we are following the federal, there are regionals, bureaus, sub-regional bureaus. So there are 3 levels. So it may take up to June 2028. Otherwise, we have a roadmap and strategy objective, and the financial, the resource also expected. So we have a clear roadmap, and we have such a plan. So we are running to complete as much as possible within short period of time, not keeping the strategy. If possible, we try to roll out as much as possible as early as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think there are some other questions regarding more about continue to improve the procurement system in Ethiopia. And I think this is not only relevant for the country, but to any country, that any such projects, be it funded by the World Bank or by other institutions or by the countries themselves, I think needs to be articulated in a way so as that they can advance and continue to improve over the time. So this is not just a one-off project that will end. I think this will entail understanding which additional support, additional funding will be required over the years. And I think with this, we would like to conclude this session. Please, we would want to invite you to read the full assessment of Ethiopia. It's really an in-depth report. It has a very detailed indicator matrices with a lot of information that's there for you to read. And please follow us on social media. There will be more events, one coming next week about Mauritius at the same time at 2 p.m. Paris time on the 15th to speak about that assessment, and then do log on to hear about that and other assessments. So thank you so much for being with us. This recording, we will post it online, and we hope to see you in other future events. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Thank you so
organizing
much.
this.
Have a good day.
Thank you for organizing. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.